Hi, my name is Mike, and I'm here to read a comic. And today's comic is Green Lantern, Green Arrow, issue number 81, dated December 1970. And this is one of the, what they call it, Hard Traveling Heroes series. This is the series with Neil Adams and Denny O'Neil. This is probably my personal favorite in terms of the entire run. I also love this cover. It's kind of an abstract cover, but it's the type of thing that was kind of in vogue at the time. As we see our heroes just trying to hold on for dear life in this situation where, you had this exploding population. Anyway, so I'm going to go into the story. So we see the story is Death Be My Destiny. And this is sort of a slight carryover from issue 80. Issue 80 sort of dealt with law and order and the justice system. And in there, this particular member of the Guardians, one of the members of the Guardians wanted to see what the new Green Lantern and Green Arrow team was going to do, because they had decided that rather than keeping order, they were going to seek out justice. And one of the Guardians was interested in this. This is this kind of all-powerful group of people who are making decisions for other people based on, quote, law and order. So this member of the Guardians, he came there. He's known as the Old Timer. I don't think they used his name other than the Old Timer. And he got into trouble with the other Guardians because he wasn't supposed to, quote, interfere. It's kind of like the Star Trek Federation with their Prime Directive. Anyway, this guy basically, he violated their Prime Directive. And he needs to be judged by it. And the Guardians decided to sort of outsource their first attempt to kind of judge this Guardian. But that kind of failed, and that's an issue I'll talk about. I'm going to talk about all of these Neil Adams issues. Denny O'Neil also. But nevertheless, the old-timer here, he pleads that he's guilty of this violation. So the other Guardians saying you violated the Prime Directive. He's saying, yes, I did. I'm guilty of it. Green Lantern, Green Arrow, and Black Canary, they're vehemently denying this, saying that no, he did no such violation, and that any violation was a positive thing for our planet, not a negative one. So each member of the trio, they make their defense individually. Green Lantern is kind of arguing from the legal side. Black Canary is using a more personal approach. So, and nevertheless, these three are big fans of the Old Timer. However, the Guardians really aren't listening to them. They're not taking what they have to say in consideration. As representatives of Earth, there are no representatives of Earth, even though we are directly interfering with their progress. Again, this is one of the things that Denny O'Neil wanted to talk about. Differences in law and order and justice, and sort of these authority figures who are more tied into the law than they were into justice, because the law and justice too sometimes don't meet. The Guardians, they're in their ivory towers. They're saying, listen, Earthlings, we know what's best for you, Earthlings. Honestly, the way the planet is going, I kind of have to agree with the Guardians here. Maybe we need an all-powerful alien presence to police ourselves, because we're not doing a good job ourselves. And his punishment, the old-timer's punishment, is being stripped of immortality by the other Guardians. and he'll be sent back to their original home world until, his natural life ends. We see the Guardians, they kind of have this mind melt thing, and all of them are focusing their thoughts or power on the old timer. The old timer is clearly affected by this. He appears to be a little smaller in stature, and he's a little more shrunken and a little more humble. So he knows that much of the power and his immortality was stripped from him. The three heroes are very upset about this. The Hal Jordan in this issue is good Hal. This is how Hal should have been more like. He's not problematic Hal. He's generally not too problematic in this issue. Black Canary's very upset. It's always like, the girls are a little more emotional. Green Arrow is there, being a good boyfriend and offering emotional support, and maybe a little touch here and there. So anyway, Hal, Green Lantern, he makes an impassioned speech to the Guardians saying that I used to really respect you guys, and I respect you guys a lot less, and that maybe, we need to change with the times, and I'm changing, and then maybe you need to change too. But he says he's still on board. So he's willing to be their muscle, their space cop, but he's letting it be known that he has a lot of unhappiness with it. The other Guardians don't want to lose his services, because apparently he's considered the best amongst them. And there's some troubling morality if Hal Jordan is the best of what any kind can bring. But nevertheless, the three heroes, they do go with the old timer. I'm a little buzzed, so I'm not going to pronounce that word correctly. They're going to the planet to where the old timer has been banished. Beautiful artwork here. They are mentioning that there are events that happened in the previous issue. That rarely occurred in DC Comics. Almost all of their stories, pretty much in this era, was sort of one and done. Okay, so anyway, the four of them, they arrive at the planet, and the planet is called Maltus. I'm assuming it's called Maltus because of a famous economist named Thomas Malthus who had some very strange ideas, interesting ideas about food growth and population growth. I know libertarians really like that guy, so that tells you there's a bit of Machiavellian with his type of thinking. So I think that's why they call this planet Maltus. But nevertheless, they're noticing that there's a bunch of people. They've never seen so many people before. And the old timer is telling them that the last time the Guardians had checked, this planet was sparsely populated. So they're a little surprised by this big crowd. The bubble lands, there's a bunch of people running because there's so little space. There's a great deal of anger about these three people showing up, these four people showing up, and it's to the point where things are, the population is so huge that even four additional people is four too many for them. Of course, Black Canary is pointed out as being the only woman in the group, and some of the men immediately want to kill her. She knows self-defense. So this guy had learned a hard lesson here as she uses a judo chop to kind of smash his face to the cement. Green Arrow, he's not going to take this from anyone, so he belts another guy who's coming for him, and suddenly the four visitors are kind of just swarmed by this huge angry mob. So they decide to retreat and to figure out maybe they should go someplace to think, maybe they should go someplace a little less crowded. But the problem is they're not finding any places that are less crowded. The old timer, he's kind of like saying, hey guys, this is my problem, not yours. You can just drop me off and I'll just deal with whatever happens. The other heroes are not like that. They're not going to do that to the old timer, put him somewhere where he might be in danger. Also, they seem genuinely curious as to what's going on here, because they've never seen so many people before. However, the old timer is aware of a vault that has an archive that will tell them what's been going on. I guess they knew about this when they were monitoring the planet. It just they haven't been monitoring it for a while, but this facility is still in action. Green Lantern uses his power to lift the vault out of the ground. And what's happening is the Green Lantern is simultaneously using his power ring to create a bridge for the other three to cross as he's opening the door to the vault. So Hal's doing a couple of things here. Once, it's putting a strain on him. One of the things that the Guardians did to Green Lantern is that they depowered his ring a little. This was a device so Denny O'Neil could give him some more challenges and make things not look too easy. That was the problem with a lot of DC stuff, is that the heroes really had it too easy. But nevertheless, it turns out there is someone in the vault. It turns out he's an assistant of the keeper of the tapes. And basically, he locked himself in there because he says this is really the only place where someone can have a little privacy. However, it is a public facility, and they're asking for something that is readily available. So the guy, he fires up the tapes, and he kind of lets them know what's going on with the population, because apparently the assistant knows, but he's saying actually most people out there don't know, which is kind of interesting. Okay, before I go back to the story, there is one in-house ad here. Apparently, an early comic convention was held in the summer of 1970. I used to go to those comic conventions. They were so much fun. And apparently there's a little organization that got together that kind of recognizes the artist from all the comic book companies. And DC had done particularly well. Neil Adams, of course, won an award. Dick Giordano, he won an award for Best Editor. Carmine Infantino, who's the head honcho at DC, he was, I guess, named Best Publisher. And Joe Kubrick, he had won an award. He was mostly known for DC's war stuff, particularly Sergeant Rock. Okay, it was kind of nice that they started kind of taking this stuff seriously. Okay, so going back to the story, we see the story. Apparently there was a meteorite, and it passed through Maltus. And at this point, when it did that, Maltus was like kind of this thriving planet of, you see a lot of young people here, a lot of people who are very happy. But what happened was the cosmic dust from this meteor affected the people, and they were no longer able to reproduce. So the thing was, the population completely stagnated to zero. So you ended up with a bunch of these old bats, but there's no young people to like kind of drive them to Kmart and stuff like that. So then a Mother Juna, who apparently is a very influential and important scientist and figure in this culture, she says she has a way of doing this. She has a way of cloning and reproducing people who will appear as full-grown adults with full-grown memories, sort of like the androids in Blade Runner. And will reproduce these people, and these people will kind of be a part of the population, and then, now you have someone who will drive you to Walmart. So the people originally were behind this. But then what happened was that two events happened. One was that people started to recover from the space dust. So they started having children again naturally. But this Blade Runner android process, that didn't stop. And these android, I guess these kind of duplicates, were still, being added to the population. And again, since they have the memories of full-grown adults, they're going to consider themselves, lifelong members of this planet, and kind of not these artificially and simulated people. So anyway, the tapes are over. They hear the story. It turns out that Green Lantern from outside was able to monitor what's going on. So all four have the story. Green Lantern puts the safe down, and then the four start to debate on what they should do. And Green Lantern's kind of taking the position that maybe we don't need to do anything. We'll we'll look around. Hal always sort of had that libertarian streak in him, so he's like, listen, we got this huge population, and that means possibilities, that means opportunities, and of course, as all libertarians, they believe resources, they're not limited, completely unlimited. So that's the view Green Lantern's taking. Oliver Queen, the Green Arrow, he's like, dude, the answer's already been figured out. We're gonna sock this woman in the mouth, and we're gonna take care of her that way. So then what they decide to do is they're going to take a look at the planet themselves and see what's going on in terms of the reality on the ground. And see a great sequence here. I have to admit, sometimes when I look at it, I do get teary-eyed. We see the four heroes very humble, very concerned about what they're seeing, and what they're seeing is really horrible. They're seeing basically the aftermath of too many people being on the planet. There are too many people. There are too few resources. We see that not only there's a great deal of unhappiness in terms of like their everyday lives, but their emotional health. These people are hot-tempered. They're always looking for a fight. They're very violent. We see here that a couple was exposed, and the woman was pregnant, which means bringing in another person. And it looks like the mob is going to murder the husband for doing this. And we see other images of people just, committing heinous crimes for just small amounts of food. We see mothers who are not able to provide food for their children. To a degree, Denny O'Neil was kind of a crusading reporter. And he got into comics because he needed a more steady income. But that kind of crusader reporter part about him bled into these comic books here. And I'm sure he's seen scenes just like this, because he would often go, I think he went into coal country, West Virginia, in the 60s when there was a strike and there was horrible poverty. We see other people where people are just dying on the streets and just complete indifference to what's going on, saying that they're sort of like more animal than beast here. The four members, they're all horrified. So any doubts that Green Lantern had, they're totally put to rest. Green Lantern wants to repower his ring and do what he can to help. He's thinking about his days as a space cop, and saying that when he would recite the oath as he was recharging his ring, it meant one thing to him back then, but he's sort of growing and changing as a person, and things aren't as black and white as he thought. So anyway, after some of this kind of self-reflection, the four heroes, they're in the bubble, and they are flying toward the center of the issues with the population, and they're going to attack Mother Junta's, scientific lab here. Now, one thing I want to note here is I like the interaction between Black Canary and Green Arrow here. Green Arrow sees the lab, he sees the objective, and his attitude is, we just knocked this place out and we've solved this problem. Whereas Black Canary's sort of taking more of a longer view of the issue, where she's like, hey, we knock it out, we'll help with this issue, but we're not going to solve the problem. So I thought that was a nice little thing where the male was sort of looking at it short term, and the woman was kind of looking at it long term. However, there's a huge problem, is that the dome that they have to break into is made of yellow, and Green Lantern's ring has no effect on yellow. So the ring is actually useless against that color. It's kind of weird that his weakness is a color rather than a substantive thing, but nevertheless, that's the Green Lantern we have. And the others by themselves are definitely not powerful enough to break into that vault. However, Green Arrow has an idea saying that basically before we allow these people to kill us, we'll put on a show for them. We'll give them a little bit of entertainment so they can kind of like put away their miseries for a little while, before they rip us up to limb. But while the show is going on with the Black Canary and Green Arrow, it turns out that the Green Lantern is using this time and distraction to dig a tunnel under the dome. So Green Lantern is having a lot of success with that, but he still needs a little bit more time. However, once he's done, he signals Green Arrow and Black Canary that they're done, and then Green Arrow, he uses a smog arrow to create a distraction. So right now the crowd is engulfed in this smog fest here. They're kind of being maced a little bit. The heroes take this and they go down the tunnel, and when they get up, they're in the lab. It's still yellow, so Green Lantern's a little pissed off that Mother Junta apparently is a fan of this color. Then they're met by this huge hulking presence. And normally this is something Green Lantern would take care of in a moment. However, because the creature is also all yellow, the ring won't work. So they try a frontal assault. Green Lantern goes in. He goes in. He's leading with his left, which is not a good idea to do. But it wouldn't have mattered against this type of foe. The foe immediately slams Green Lantern's head to the floor, which is what happens when you use bad boxing techniques. But in this case, he was just overpowered. Green Arrow realizes that he's going to have to go up against this creature. Rather than using his arrows, he's going to use his physicality, and he's immediately knocked out. So Green Arrow basically chose to take a knife to a gunfight. He could have used one of his arrows, but he decided to go physical. I guess he figured if Hal didn't have his weapon, he had to kind of match that manhood. And rather than using his arrows, he used his body and got slammed. So the two guys are unconscious, and right now it's this huge, bulking creature, male creature, up against Black Canary. She realizes how strong this creature is, but she also thinks she has a plan. She says, I have a move that will work on this guy. And take a moment to look at DC Currents, which is sort of the Marvel bullpen bulletins. They're just talking about some of the comics that were coming out. The noteworthy one is The Brave and the Bold, because that was a Denny O'Neil and Neil Adams issue. So they were they were still working on Batman when they were working on Green Lantern. Talking about Enemy Ace and the Unknown Soldier. DC actually had to choose between those two. And from what I understand, the older readers preferred Enemy Ace, but the younger readers preferred Unknown Soldier, as that was sort of more of a superhero storytelling. I think Unknown Soldier won out. Talking about some horror stuff that Gil Kane is working on. Talking about the Flash. Flash was still a pretty decent comic at this point. Okay, nothing else more. Blinky, and yeah, just some of the Superman stuff. So I'll go back to the story. The creature is rushing toward Black Canary. Black Canary already has her move set up, so she's just waiting for a good opportunity. She finds it where he's slightly off balance. She does her little judo chop, completely effective. And the guy, his head is bashed into the wall. The two others, Green Lantern, Green Arrow, they're impressed. Yeah, there's no chauvinism from these two at this point here. So it's kind of like the thing, there's no such thing as a racist in a foxhole. They're like, hey, we need this chick. So, hey, we got to be nice to her. So anyway, it turns out Mother Juna comes out, and she has two more of these monstrous bodyguards who she regards as sons. And she's very protective of them. And she's like, how dare you hurt my children? But what they decide to do is kind of a funny move. It's similar to what Captain America did in that 1990 film.
Would you pull the car over, please? I think I'm going to be sick.
What?
Would you please pull over the car? I am going to get sick.
Oh, okay, all right. Hey! Captain! Are you okay? Yeah.
Where he kind of did a little head fake, and then he just ran around whoever he needed to get around. So the four of them, they run around Mother Junta and her big bodyguards. It's only 2 panels, but it seems somewhat reminiscent of X-Men 59, where the members of the X-Men were running through the Trask complex until Cyclops was the only one left. So anyway, the 4 of them are running. They're running toward the big lab. They're at the big lab. Green Arrow's like, hey, let's start busting up stuff. Green Lantern is kind of taking it a little easier. Hey, let's make sure and know what we're busting. So as they're deciding this, Mother Junta and the 2 bodyguards, they catch up to them. And one of the things that they're in luck is that not everything in the lab is made of yellow. So there are things that, how's ring can affect. See on the next page, there is an in-house ad for an Action Comics. And Son of Tomahawk. I guess that was one of their Western comics. So anyway, going back to the story, one of the things that's not made of yellow is this huge device that's hanging from the ceiling. Hal cuts the cords, and it falls immediately on one of the yellow creatures. He's out for the count. Green Arrow did what he should have done earlier. It was actually use his arrows, and the arrow ended up knocking out the other bodyguard. So Mother Junta is without her bodyguards, but she still has some fight in her, because this woman is a fanatic, and she's angry that her 2 children, in her eyes, were kind of taken out. She's letting out some anger at Black Canary, calling her a hussy. On one hand, I can understand based on the way she's dressed. But on the others, it's kind of like, yeah, you're being jealous here. Black Canary realizes this woman is a nutcase. She wants to use a judo move on her. But the problem is that the judo move was too good. And Mother Junta was kind of twisting more than she expected. So Mother Junta takes a header into the machinery. So right now, the threat has been eliminated for the heroes. They can start dismantling the lab. However, during that time, the crowd of people that they had left, they had found the tunnel. And apparently they had gone through the tunnel, and they're in the complex right now. So the heroes realize that they don't have to wreck the place. The mob will do it. And again, these are a couple of panels that I really enjoy. I love this panel here where Hal is just thinking, hey, let's just finish wrecking the place. And, Green Arrow is just turning his head saying, I don't think we have to. And they're talking about how the crowd finally has something to strike back at. For all their years of misery, they actually can destroy the source of their pain. Green Lantern realizes that there's no point in trying to talk to them and trying to stop them. So he immediately evacuates his three friends and Mother Junta. They leave the yellow guys. Apparently he feels that they're strong enough to take a beating, because I don't think those guys are going to make it out alive based on what this crowd looks like. So anyway, they're in the flying bubble, which is how they got there in the first place. And Black Canary's questioning Mother Junta, kind of an unusual question here, asking, why did she use her scientific genius for evil? The thing is that Mother Junta did not think of herself as evil. And many villains don't think of themselves as being evil. So she's really offended by this question. And it turns out it's kind of a cultural thing, where Mother Junta was one of the women who did not recover from the cosmic dust when other women started to recover. So she was not able to be a mother, which is the one thing that she was taught to be. And because of this, she felt the urge to, quote, create life, but she just went overboard with it, and she just did not stop. Because even following the logic of being a mother, at some point, women cannot physically become pregnant. However, she couldn't stop doing what she's doing. She's very upset. Black Canary realizes that she's not talking to someone who's evil, but someone who's misguided. And she realizes that Mother Junta is denied an option that she still has. So Black Canary feels bad about it. So Green Lantern, Green Arrow, they're talking to the old timer about what they can do. Green Lantern is saying, listen, maybe we should make an appeal to the Guardians and get you out of this hellhole. However, the old timer wants to stay. He's saying, listen, there's a cause here, I can make a difference here, and I'm going to see what I can do with the years I have left. And he's even saying that, even with his limited lifespan, he might be able to do more good than his immortal brothers. So the old timer decides to stay on Multus. I suspect this was done also so they can kind of ease Black Canary in, because I guess they realized, the two guys and this kind of pumpkin-headed like old man wasn't doing it, so they brought in the hot chick for the following issues. Although Black Canary was a great addition, in my opinion, she really worked well. So anyway, the heroes, they leave, and Oliver Queen and Diane Lance, I think is her name. They're in their civilian clothes. They're on a date. They look really hip and really beautiful here. And again, you can see they're in a crowded street, not the type that they found at Multus, but Black Canary is just saying, listen, hey, it's not a cheerful universe, but we just have to do the best we can. And she leaves with saying, please be kind, be gentle. It's kind of a good message there, and the story ends. Okay, so I'm going to go to the letters page. 2 pages of letters. There actually were a couple of negative letters. It's kind of interesting. The first letter is very complimentary, saying that all the drama that he was looking for in comics, all the potential he saw, is being played out in Green Lantern, Green Arrow. He knocks Marvel here. He calls them, quote, "Your competitors are still churning out soap opera-like trash," which is supposed to represent reality. Yeah, there were some kids who did not like Marvel Comics. They were kind of like in the minority, but nevertheless there were some. The letter also mentioning movies like Easy Rider and Midnight Cowboy, which were very groundbreaking at the time. And yeah, it's in going through the issues. This is a very, very intelligent letter. So this guy really likes what they're doing. Second letter is just as complimentary. They're talking about issue numbers 78, A Kind of Loving, A Way of Death. That was basically Green Lantern, Green Arrow versus Charles Manson. And again, the focus of these comics was, quote, relevant, issues that were relevant. And yeah, the Manson murders were relevant. And talking about how good the dialogue is, talking about how good the art is. Now, there were some negative comments. One was a little tired of, I guess, Denny O'Neil's sort of liberal point of view, because he's saying, listen, I have nothing against politics, but I don't want politics in my comic books. And, I don't want, William F. Buckley, arch conservative, writing Green Lantern, Green Arrow. And I certainly don't want the other side of the spectrum too. He wants a return to the quote old Green Lantern, back when Green Lantern was fighting space aliens and stuff like that. It's kind of an interesting reply from Jules Swartz to this letter. Basically saying, point one, the praise that we received basically outnumbers you like 9-1. So they're saying that basically 90% of the readers are enjoying what they're doing. Point two, the Green Lantern you favored had turned into a financial loser. That's the reason why they had started these comic books, because what had happened was a year before they started coming out, Green Lantern was facing cancellation. And Jules Swartz, who was the editor at the time, really had a strong connection with this character. He was the guy who helped reboot it. And Green Lantern, for the longest time, probably had the best designed costume. So Jules Swartz was very proud of his rebooting of Green Lantern. He didn't want to see it go because of lack of sales. So apparently what he had done was he went to Denny O'Neil. And Denny O'Neil had written a Justice League story that Swartz liked, and it was about pollution. And I think the two, and Swartz had come up saying maybe we should focus more on relevant issues. And Denny O'Neil took that football and he ran with it. But I think it took about a year from that meeting to when actually issue 76 had gone out. The reason they didn't do it sooner was that they still had commissioned the stories and artwork for those other stories that were, quote, from the financial loser. And they were like, damn it, we paid these guys, we're going to use this stuff. So anyway, this letter did not like, yeah, and what was the third point? Point three, despite your nausea, we're betting you felt well enough to buy issues number 79, 80, and 81. Okay, so that's kind of rubbing the guy's nose in it. He's saying, you're telling us we suck, but you're probably still buying the issues. So Jules was a little angry with that. And again, there is I think one other letter which said that, listen, I don't really mind relevance here or there, But when you do it, each issue, it gets to be a little too much. I think there was a season of the Golden Girls, I remember, I think it was season 2 or 3, where every episode was like a message episode. There was like one episode on chronic fatigue syndrome. There's another issue on elder abuse. There was another issue on child, whatever. And I remember my mom loved that show, but she hated that season. Okay, so I think that's it. So that is my review of Green Lantern, Green Arrow, number 81, and I hope to have more reviews up soon. Bye.